Thanks, Mom, for never giving up and always being my biggest fan.
Thank you for letting me know what you expect, so I can try to meet your expectations.
Thank you for talking.
For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
WRLR 98.3 FM LP, Round Lake Beach, Illinois.
Hello and howdy, everybody. Happy Monday, everyone. You are tuned in to WRLR 98.3 FM, The Life. I've got to learn to stop saying WRLR. We're 98.3 FM, The Life. You're listening to Bacon Bits with Master Happiness. I'm your host, Marty Jalove. And I come at you every single Monday night at 7 o'clock. We talk about your job, your career, your vision made clear, the skills that you hone for the business that you own, the ups, the downs, the smiles and frowns, where you're at and where you're bound. And I'm on the quest, as I do every week, to bring you the industry best. And today I have another very special guest. And so I want to introduce him. You know, normally I try to get in a decent introduction. I tell people about these people and, you know, they do so much of a better job introducing themselves. So I just want to talk to you. It's my good friend Shane from Brass City Games. And so Shane, I want you to tell them who you are, why they should know you, how they contact you, where you're located, what you're all about. So you're on, Shane. It's all up to you.
You got it. Thanks, Marty. Yeah, hi, I'm Shane Miears. I own Brass City Games. We're up in Lake Villa. We used to be in Round Lake for about 10 years, and we moved up to Lake Villa 6 months ago.
Excellent. And I apologize for that because I was telling people it was Grays Lake, Round Lake, but it's Lake Villa, Brass City Games, right?
Correct. Yeah, okay. You can actually throw a stone in any direction and probably hit a new game store in like within 5 miles.
Gotcha.
The Midwest is the most saturated area in the world for
game
stores.
All right.
Yeah.
But why should we come to Brass City Games above anyone else?
Sure.
Go ahead.
We like to think that we're the friendliest in the area. Everybody has their own brand of what friendly or comfortable is.
Sure.
But we've done a lot over the last 10 years to cultivate that. One of the things that we do probably differently than a lot of other stores is we really put a lot of time into teaching.
That's cool. Yes.
How to play the games.
That's what I love, that we had that conversation about what you do. And I love the fact that you do put the emphasis on that, because I think, and this is me being an outsider in the game world like that, I just think that a lot of people are intimidated because there are so many games and they don't know what to do. And they want to walk into a place where they're not going to be inundated by experts and then feel like they're a fool.
Right.
So I love the fact that you put an emphasis into teaching. But go ahead, tell us more about how we follow you, when we should go there, what's going on.
Yeah, so we're on all the socials. We're on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Twitch and Twitter, and we use some of those more than others. But if you find any one of those, you can probably find the rest.
Okay.
We started with Facebook because it was the thing to do 10 years ago. Right. And we've kind of drifted more into Discord because it meets our needs more.
Okay.
As far as organizing and disseminating information.
Okay.
And giving like a good area to discuss things game related. We're up in Lake Villa, like I said. Our website is www.brasscitygames.com. And despite what some of the platforms say, I've been struggling with this for 6 months. We are in Lake Villa at 300 North Milwaukee Avenue. Apple Maps is not our friend right now. Right. It took Google like 5 weeks, and Facebook still sometimes reverts it back to the old address, even though.
Yeah, I think I wandered over to the old address.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So working on that.
Yes. Yeah. But it's definitely worth the trip. It's definitely worth driving around to find the place. So one of the things that make you special, other than the education, is how much does it cost for people to come in and play your games?
Yeah, you touched on that on the last one. Our table space is free.
That's incredible.
Almost exclusively. The caveats are if we're running a tournament.
And
we need some of that table space, sometimes all of that table space, depending on how big of a tournament it is, or some other event. Like this weekend, when we're running a really big event that we've never done before, we're going to stream on Twitch. Playing Magic with my buddy and other members of the community for 24 hours.
Wow, that should be fantastic.
Yeah. Back when I was a much younger man, we used to play on Friday nights until the sun came up the next morning and go get breakfast.
Okay.
And I haven't done that in a while.
Okay.
So I'm not exactly in practice, so we'll see how it goes. But we're going to do raffles and door prizes and special events.
And when does that start?
That starts on Friday at 2 p.m.
Okay.
This Friday at 2 p.m.
Okay.
Which is 2 hours earlier than our normal open time.
All right.
And then it's going to go for 24 hours until Saturday at 2 p.m.
Gotcha.
We've got our official ribbon cutting with the mayor and the Chamber of Commerce Saturday at 1.
Fantastic. Tremendous.
We're going to try to do like a potluck kind of cookout.
Okay.
Bring a dish sort of thing.
Right.
Because we're going to be there for 24 hours.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Exactly. Need fuel.
There you go. So one more time, what's the address exactly? Only because I know that Google Maps was kind of a little screwy with your old address.
Yeah,
so what's the address?
So it is 300 North Milwaukee Avenue.
Okay.
Sweet K, Lake Villa.
All right, fantastic. So you heard it here. That's this Friday. Come anytime after 2. Watch these guys play. Pop in, stare in the window at midnight if you need to. Okay. But definitely come back on Saturday for the ribbon cutting. This is tremendous. And then be sure to become a pal of this place. I went in there and I was really pleasantly surprised on the amount of games and the amount of attention that Shane and his people have towards education, just making you really feel welcome and wonderful. So it's a great place. My wife's big into the family fun board games, and I might have to tell her where I'm going to take her out on a date night and see what we do at your place. Okay.
Well, we have a demo library that is always growing of board games that are free to play.
Okay.
So as long as you're in the store.
Obviously. Yeah, obviously. Right. I can't just take them out like a library.
We're not a library.
All right. Excellent.
We've got 40 games now. We used to have a much larger one, but we were in a larger space. So we had to pare down a little bit.
Awesome. So, today's show is going to be really kind of special. Here we are talking about board games, and I met Shane in one of the most unlikely of places as I walked out of the studio about a month ago, maybe something like that. There he was standing out there and his hands up going, look, I'm not a stalker, but you know what? He was a stalker. Okay. He was checking out the show and he said, hey, I really like this show, this whole idea. And we started talking and I went to his place, got to meet, get to know him a little bit better and see what the store was all about. So we decided, let's create a whole show about this, about the idea of board games to the boardroom, the strategies and the tactics and the things that you learn from playing board games, all this plethora of games, the idea of all the things you learn from there that are going to help you in life and in your career as you grow. And I really think I do a lot of teaching games, but I teach like improv comedy to teams, to salespeople, etc., to help build up some teamwork and do some other stuff, to build some camaraderie within a company. But this is a whole different aspect, and I really like this. So, Shane, now that you're a big fan of the show, Bacon Bits with Master Happiness, you must know by now that what we do is every week, we tackle a problem like this or an issue, or just we talk about in general how we can bring some happiness back to the workplace. And what we do is we add a little bacon, because anything you add bacon to is just a little bit better, right?
I agree.
All right.
Absolutely.
So for this show, it's not about the bacon for chewing, it's the bacon for doing.
Okay.
All right. and so it's the same thing. What we're going to kind of do is use as a light, I don't even know what that word means. Using as a light outline for the show. We're going to use this BACON, but tangents are definitely encouraged on this show.
Yeah, I think I warned you, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
which is perfectly fine. Anyone with a goatee and a Hawaiian shirt,
fair enough.
you rule the show. All right. So the bacon for today, what we're going to try to talk about a little bit is how playing board games will help you in your career and in your business. So the B is it helps you build connections. A is it amplifies creativity. C is it cultivates patience. This is, I think, is a really big one. All right. O is it optimizes decisions. All right. And N is it nurtures confidence. All right. So there's a little bit of everything there. So before we jump into this, I'm going to throw it back to you. What's your favorite game that you play at your place?
Hands down, Magic.
Is it? All right.
Yeah, which is a card game, not a board game.
Okay.
But still
same thing. Yeah. So give us the minimal explanation of what Magic is.
Sure. So I kind of a fan of saying that you can learn the basics of the game in 5 minutes, but it takes a lifetime to master.
Awesome.
And I also think I misreferenced. I said Mensa said it was the most complex game in the world.
Okay.
It was MIT.
Oh, MIT thought that. Okay. Excellent.
Retweeted or whatever from Mensa.
Okay.
But yeah. So think chess, I suppose. When
Yeah.
you think of like strategy.
Sure.
And thinking multiple steps ahead. But instead of doing it with pieces on the board, you're doing it with cards in your hand. Each card is a unique creature in most cases.
Okay.
So you and I are spellcasters.
Yeah.
Our deck represents the knowledge from all the studying we've done.
Right.
And we both have health points of some sort. You start at 20 life points. And the main way to win the game is to knock your opponent down to 0.
Okay.
There are other ways, but that's the main way.
Gotcha. So I like this. And first off, I want to get into this thing that a lot of people they look at these kind of games and they're like, oh, creatures and wizards and they shy away from it.
Right.
But I really want, one of the purposes today is to explain that creating these creatures, these wizards, magic, health points, etc., all this kind of stuff is to add flair and some flavor to the game.
Yes.
But the basics of it is it's a strategy game.
Absolutely.
That you've got positives and negatives you've got to work with. You've got to anticipate what your opponent is going to do. You team up with people, etc., in order to play this game.
Absolutely.
Right. And when you think about it, again, some people start looking at this and going, oh, dragons and fairies or whatever.
Right.
You think about it, even the game of chess, which is revered as such a strategy game, you're still playing with kings and queens, pawns, and it's pretty much
fantasy.
Exactly. So it's not that big of a stretch, and I just wanted to get that out right away in the beginning to move forward with this and talk more about what we can really learn from these games.
Right.
Okay. Now I threw out a couple of different things here, and aside from the bacon, and I'm just going to read these little titles off, and let's just tackle these and tell me some of the expertise of how people can learn this. So strategic thinking, communication, teamwork, problem solving, and independent work. Okay.
Sure.
So that seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So strategic thinking, what are some of the games that you would imagine other than Magic? You can't just keep plugging Magic.
I won't.
All right. What are some of the other games that you would say are great for helping? Let's even say, if I was a parent bringing my kids in, what would be a great game to teach them strategic thinking, or what would be a great game for me to introduce to my coworkers for strategic thinking?
So a lot of that's going to really depend on their age
and
or comprehension level.
Yes.
And the rest of that would probably be remember your audience, like what's the environment, because some of these games are party games, so they're meant to be played, fast and loose and loud, and maybe while you're drinking.
Okay.
And some are deep thinkers where you're in the tank a lot. You're just thinking the whole time.
Okay. So maybe not so much drinking for that game.
Not so much.
Right.
Well, unless it helps you, I guess.
Exactly. All right.
And everything in between. So just like writing a piece, you would want to remember your audience. But if you brought kids in,
if I brought kids in,
let's say if you brought kids that are elementary school,
okay, sure.
There's all the stuff you can buy at the big box stores like Monopoly and Sorry and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And those are fine games, but the board game community has had an explosion in the last 10 plus years,
right?
With the complexity and the variety.
Oh my God, it's amazing. It's like everyone now. I don't know if it's a low cost of entry to get into creating a board game, because people, hey, I got this idea. They talk to somebody and there's another board game out.
Yeah,
right.
Well, so things can be self published because everybody can use all the self publishing technology that's available now that wasn't available 10 or 20 years ago.
Gotcha.
But things like what's Apples to Apples,
okay,
is the family friendly version of Cards Against Humanity, right?
Right. Or vice versa.
Or vice versa.
Right. All right.
Yeah. So that's good for kids of a certain age.
Yeah.
But if you want something that has a little more strategy, then you are going to want something that makes them. They have multiple options, but they need to consider timing or sequencing. When they do what can really matter.
Okay.
Because you can get benefits and bonuses from doing things in a particular order.
Gotcha. Sure.
But yeah, I mean, like we as a shop and as a family, we love a game called Codenames.
Okay.
And it's usually best played in like a 3-on-3 or 4-on-4 environment. And it's one where people of all skill levels and age levels can play together.
Okay. And how long would that game normally take?
That highly depends on the people who are reading. So you play as like a code reader, and then you're trying to communicate to your spies in the field.
Okay.
And depending on how well your code reader can link certain words together, and know the people they're playing with, it will greatly impact how long the game takes. But you can probably play a full game in 30 minutes.
Oh,
it could take more than an
hour.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that is a legitimate, hey, we're all together, why don't we play this game kind of game.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not because it's not going to be a game that I'm going to say, let's dedicate 24 hours to play.
No, we're not playing Twilight Imperium or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So strategic thinking, that's pretty cool. Communication and teamwork. Let's put those together. Yeah. What are some of the games that you would suggest if we needed to improve teamwork and communication in a small business? If I got 6 to 12 employees and I said, hey, you know what, we're going to have a game night, and my purpose here is to help my team work together and become better at communicating. And I'm sorry, I didn't prep Shane on any of this.
Yeah. So like I'm trying to think of not just games that I know that I can fit in that hole. I'm trying to think of like something that's a little more accessible or more well known, or what the best in class is, sort of thing. But a lot of games are, well, so first of all, there's two main categories of games. There's co-op games where you work together.
Okay.
And that would probably fit more what you're talking about.
Sure.
And then there are games that are, versus games, 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2, whatever. And those games would have a little less communication in them, obviously, because in some cases they're, every man for themselves. But co-op games, as a rule, any of those would be good for increasing communication and team building.
Gotcha.
And so some examples of that would be the Forbidden series. There's a Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert, etc. And you're racing against a game AI, for lack of a better term. Like the game is going to put pressure on you and take certain actions.
Okay.
And you as a team are going to have to figure out when to do what, in what order, and how quickly.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. All right. And so, what I really like about this is off the cuff. You just, I'm throwing the questions at you. And you're all right, I'm trying to come up with good answers.
I did actually attempt to prep. Like I printed out your outline and I thought about it for a bit. But like, I don't know what you're going to ask.
No, exactly. No, I don't even know what I'm going to ask.
The topic is vast. So.
But what I really like, and I want to reiterate, so a place like Brass City Games, I could go there and I could say, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish. Right. And between you and your team, you've got examples there. You could do really quick demonstrations, explanations, etc. So I think that's pretty cool. So here's going to be the easy one, is teaching people problem-solving skills. Do you have any games that you would say fall into that category?
Every single game that is not a drinking game.
Okay.
And is not a chaosy kind of press your luck kind of game.
Okay.
Because those are chaotic. Like
sure.
To a certain segment of the population, those games are the best games there are. They don't have to put a lot of prep time into it. They're not looking to win. They're just looking to entertain themselves, do something silly, and have fun. And that kind of game is good for that, but not for necessarily strategy. So everything else, which is like 90% of the games, will teach you strategy.
Excellent. Right.
They have kind of like, you can make them as complicated or as competitive as you want them to be.
And I think what it comes down to is this idea of, like you said, it's as competitive you want to make it. I think sometimes people take it for granted. They go, it's just a game. But if you sit back and you think about it, you can see that there's got to be a lot of strategy. Otherwise, you just, I won by luck, or I just lost again. It's a silly game. I just lost again. But if you sit there in all these games, you can really pinpoint some ways to add some strategic thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Which is the whole idea behind it. It makes the game worth playing.
Right.
Okay. All right. So one last thing I'm going to do before we jump into bacon is again, tying games to careers, and these big three things here that board games are not just for entertainment's sake. It adds some more because there's some definite leadership skills, empathy that you learn, and negotiation skills. All right. Now, these are more team playing, but it's also playing against an opponent to empathize. In other words, not necessarily you are trying to get in their shoes, their brain, trying to figure out what they're thinking. They've normally done this. They always do this.
Right.
So you kind of empathize with them. Are there games that you would say that teach negotiating or leadership skills? What would you say?
Absolutely.
Oh, I like that. Yes, right away. Awesome.
So this game has been called kind of the gateway to the big boy board game.
Okay.
And it's known as Settlers of Catan. and it's been around for like 20 years, but like it's been hitting it. It's been very well known for 15. Don't quote me on dates.
All right. No,
that's when it came
right.
into my awareness.
All right.
And you are trying to win, you yourself, but you will never have every resource that you need in the game to win. So you are required to trade with your opponents. And sometimes work together. And occasionally, if you end up in a like a 3-way standoff, you might have someone who's comes out really strong out of the gate.
Yeah.
And if left unchecked, they'll just win handily. So then it behooves the rest of the players to team up, even temporarily, just to keep that other person in check. Otherwise, the game's over too quickly. You didn't actually get to do anything or have any fun.
Yeah, so friends become allies, allies become friends, etc. Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty. So what's the name of that game?
So that's Settlers of Catan.
All right, awesome. So I like that because it teaches you those leadership skills, at least for short periods of time, and other people might lead for different reasons.
Right.
Okay, beautiful. So let's get right into the bacon of the thing, and that's the first. The letter B is builds connections. All right. Playing these games, which is really important to understand, playing these board games, playing these card games, playing any type of table game or activity can build connections between people. It'll strengthen relationships with colleagues, friends. It just brings people together, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So have you seen, let's say, friendships evolve or be created at your place?
Oh, yeah. We've been around long enough that for sure. Like we've had people where come in, didn't know what they were doing. I'm kind of always like, if I'm around, I'm the first point of contact. I'm the hand holder. I'm the person to make sure they feel comfortable, answer questions, usually teach them their first couple rounds or hands of the game. And then at some point, the training wheels are off and they feel comfortable enough to go play someone else.
Okay.
And they do. And then at some point, I'm chopped liver, and they have their and they have their friends
They don't
group.
need you anymore. Right.
They have their friends group. Yeah. So we've definitely seen people like, we've technically had weddings in the store.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
We've had people that have been friends now for 10 years, 5 years.
And they met at the store.
And they met at the store, and they do things outside of the store together.
That's awesome. So, I mean, that definitely shows, especially these games that you're talking about where you're dependent on someone else. It's going to build a strong connection because you're going to learn the true person, their values, the way that they rule their life is the way they're playing this game. I think that's pretty cool. So, do you do anything where you encourage that cross-play? That you say, hey, you've never played with these people, why don't you play over here? Or do you do anything, whether it's personally or in the store?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the store, we try not to be, but everybody's going to gravitate towards a group of some kind.
Sure.
Not necessarily clicky, but
that's human nature.
Yeah.
Sure.
So at times we do things to intentionally try to mix that up where, again, Magic.
Yeah.
You can quite often play in a pod format. A group of 4 is optimal. But you play with the same 4 people every day or every time you come into the shop. And so we will host tournaments.
Okay.
That then forces them into a bracket where they play against somebody else they wouldn't necessarily normally play.
Wait, play against in their quad, they play against someone else, or you have tournaments where you mix and match them?
Both.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Any amount of interaction. We also have people who have been part of the shop forever. And sometimes I tap them like, hey, can you go hop in that pod or with that group and, complete it, make it their 4th man, or they're struggling. They don't know the rules. I'll let someone who I know is patient and is good at explaining. If I can't get over there, jump in.
Now, it reminds me, one day I was on a train heading down towards Memphis. I have a sister who lives down in Memphis. In fact, she's the president of our Southern chapter, the fan club for Bacon Bits.
Ooh.
Anyway, so when I was heading down there, I went to the bar car because it's a long train ride.
Yeah.
And there was a couple people there. And the guy asks me, hey, do you play bridge? And I go, no, I don't play bridge. And he goes, well, would you be interested in playing bridge? We'll teach you.
We need a 4th. Yeah.
Right. We need a 4th. Right. And I was like, look, I've never played. He's it's easy. They taught me, And, in bridge, there's somebody who is considered the dummy sometimes. Like, in other words, you don't play, I'm going to play your cards as well. That's dummy.
Yeah.
I permanently got that position when I was playing or not, right? So I was definitely the dummy. And I remember at a certain point, they explained it to me. All right, got it. Everyone's giving me pointers and that. We played. Those people are getting so upset with me. Like, don't you even know how to play? I'm like, no, I made it perfectly clear.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to play.
Right.
So it's that type of attitude. I look at every once in a while and I go, that kind of scares me a little bit about jumping into a place like that and saying, I'm going to play with a bunch of strangers, a game I've never played.
Right.
All right. So what is the camaraderie like? In other words, it's still the idea here is building connections. What's the camaraderie like at your place?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think with screen time, we have a lot less face-to-face interaction.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that playing a tabletop game does, is it makes you comfortable with that again. Maybe you wouldn't necessarily reach out to somebody walking on the street or on the train.
Yeah.
But you have a need now. Like, you want to play a game, they want to play a game.
Yeah.
You have a common goal, and it subtly forces you out of your comfort zone. And then, all things being equal, most people are pretty good people.
Yeah.
We all have bad days, right?
Sure.
But, they have some social graces, even if they're awkward. They understand most of the rules of society.
Okay.
And they can get along, right? So even when things aren't going their way,
right.
We don't see too many people at their worst.
Okay, good.
Yeah. It sometimes brings out the best in
Yeah.
people, and the rest of the time they learn to grit their teeth,
Right.
and bear it.
Yeah.
But like I said, so many connections have been made, so many friendships have been made.
That's neat. That is really neat.
Over the years.
Sure. Now, do you have any ranking systems with these games to say, hey, I'm an amateur, I'm an expert, I'm a super expert, anything like that, so that if somebody did come in, they could say, hey, I'm at the elementary level of this game. Do not put me with people who've been playing this since the creation of time.
Right. We don't have an official numerical ranking system. I think there's a fairly good awareness, if you've been in the shop a handful of times, on who the good players are, and who the new ones are, and that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
And they kind of gravitate towards each other. We don't have at our shop that I've seen what I've seen in other places, where some bully picks on the new kid because he wants to feel good about himself, or and I would imagine as a store owner, you're going to put an end to that anyway, because you don't want that stigma in, we don't
in
want
your
that
shop.
environment. It's bad in a lot of ways for business and for confidence. And
exactly. So with that, I'm going to jump into the letter A really quick. We're going to do at least part of A, then we're going to take a mini break and finish this up. But so we did B in bacon is build connections, and A is going to be amplify creativity. And I love this. Anytime that I can do something that's going to make me more creative. Creativity is just practically my middle name. I love doing things outside of the box. So that's why I kind of like this whole board game idea. I'm going to play outside of the box.
Yeah.
But so how does playing the board games really amplify creativity? It's not just strategy. It's not following the rules. How do we add in creativity here?
Yeah. So you can learn to play any game at some level once you've played it enough times, and if I do A, B, and C in the right order, I'm going to get this expected outcome.
Okay.
Right. So in a vacuum, you know how to linearly put those steps together to optimally perform. But that's what your opponent's trying to do too.
Yeah.
So just like life, you don't know when you're going to get thrown a curveball and have some sort of external force that you have to deal with. So these games not only teach the strategy of how to play the game, correctly.
Right.
It also definitely teaches you how to play against a person or something outside of your control, because they want to win too.
Yeah.
And they're going to try to stop you. So now you have to do something outside of, optimal to be able to, get around them to still win or try to win.
I love it. So give me an example, a game that you might have played or somebody that you saw do something that you're like, wow, where did you come up with that strategy? That idea.
So this happens. I'll try not to reference Magic, but this happens a lot in Magic. But this happens in any game. Let's say you play, generally speaking, there are things in most gaming communities called a buff, something that's beneficial, right?
All right.
Or a debuff, something that's negative.
All right.
So quite often you would want to play the buffs on yourself and the debuffs on your opponent. But because a certain set of circumstances have made themselves known on the board, you play the buff on your opponent's stuff,
okay,
and or the debuff on your stuff to get around a particular condition or restriction that has been put on you
okay.
on the field, so that you can still use your pieces essentially.
Gotcha. Well, that's definitely interesting enough for me to try to figure out what that actually means. And it's even this first half an hour we've been chatting, I'm more and more intrigued. I definitely want to come. I'm going to come check out at some point in time your 24-hour thing, which
Okay, all right.
I encourage everyone to do so. But in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to take just a momentary break just to thank those people who help support the station in one way or another. So hold on one second.
Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor. Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Visit managerbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hello, listeners. Cliff Sayers here. I'm inviting you to join me noon Fridays for This Rock's Got a Roll show on 98.3 FM The Life. I play music from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today.
Hi, this is Ronald Curtis Grace, host of the Ear Candy Emporium show right here on WRLR 98.3 The Life. Join us every Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Central Time. Wish us some great music, have a laugh or two, and get your weekend started on the right note. That's the Ear Candy Emporium show, the home of sweet musical treats. Every Friday afternoon from 4 to 6, right here on 98.3 The Life, and streaming live on WRLR.FM. See you then.
WRLR 98.3 FM LP, Round Lake Beach, Illinois.
And we are back. Thank you so much for tuning in to Bacon Bits with Master Happiness. You're listening to 98.3 FM, The Life. And of course, this is Bacon Bits with Master Happiness, where we bring you all some incredible business people and the ones that have found different ways to find some happiness within their business. And today, really special guest. I love this. So if you've missed the first half of the show, wait for the podcast, find us on YouTube, etc. Do whatever it takes to listen to the whole thing. You're going to learn quite a bit. I have my good friend Shane from Brass City Games here. And what we were talking about is from the board games to the boardroom, all the things you can learn, the strategies, teamwork, leadership, etc. Everything you can learn from playing board games that can help you with life and your career. So we've been touching on the bacon that everyone who listens to the show knows we add a little bacon to the show. So far we've talked about building connections. That's the B. We're still a little bit in amplify creativity. That's the A. Then we're going to get into cultivate patience. O is optimize decisions. And N is nurture confidence. So Shane, is there anything more that you wanted to add about amplifying creativity? I really like the way you did this. You know, as I was asking you the question about do the board games help you with creativity? And as I was asking it, I was saying to myself, well, yeah, of course. And then as I'm finishing the sentence in my head, I'm going, wow, this is a tough one. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you do have to follow the rules. But I love the way that you answered that. Anything more you want to add about creativity?
Yeah, sure. If for no other reason, you might play a game that is set in a universe or has a theme that you have no experience with, or that you don't. Yeah. So like, let's say you're a sci-fi person, but you don't do medieval fantasy, or vice versa. Or there are games that are, honestly, there are games that kind of go along with nearly every profession.
Okay.
There are train games. There are building games, engineer games, city planning games, resource management games. There are money games. There are lots of games.
Sure.
So if you're not familiar with that particular segment of society, you will probably have to use a certain amount of creativity to get yourself into that game and inside that headspace.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe just being creative from using the strategy that you've learned in one game. You take that strategy and you bring it into another game where maybe that's something where people are like, oh, we never thought of that. That's a different approach.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of crossover.
Yeah, I love this. And I'm glad you mentioned that whole idea, because you're right. There are games about trains, business, finance, whatever. There's something for everyone. And it makes sense that board game or game designers would do that, because they're touching on all types of markets. So there's a game for everybody, basically.
Yeah, I would say so.
All right. Okay, so let's jump into this. So far we've done build confidence, amplify creativity, cultivate patience. And I think this is really big, because I have some nephews and I play some games with some other people younger than me, my age. Not that many people older than me. They're all dead. But but I play with people, and you can see sometimes the patient levels are not there.
Right.
But when I was a young kid, one of the things I loved was, without even realizing it, is I got into like origami or building card houses, which those are the things that you need so much patience, especially just building a card house. You're building it forever and ever and ever, and it's falling, and you start over, it's falling. And on top of it, there's no victory really. The victory is fleeting. It's up. Look at how tall it is. Bam. And it's down. You don't get to keep it. So it teaches you a lot of things, but I love games that teach patience, especially to kids, but even young adults and adults, sometimes they have no patience whatsoever. So I'm going to throw it back to you. Tell us about, cultivating patience in board games.
Sure. Some of the games, especially these days, are quite complicated, and quite often you don't have a subject matter expert in that game.
Oh, okay.
So you're all sitting around with a box open, looking at the instructions, looking on YouTube, looking on Google, whatever, which there's a lot of really great resources out for teaching you games.
Sure.
Probably far better than I can do. I can't know every game.
Right. Of course not. Right.
But I'm not going to give you the same kind of synopsis that a well thought out, planned out YouTube video is going to give either.
Okay.
So just learning the game sometimes requires a lot of patience, because you're excited, right? Like, it's really hard to get 4 adults' schedules to coordinate these days.
Yes.
So you finally did it, and you're sitting down at the table, and you're excited to have fun with your buddies. And it takes an hour to learn how to play the game.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to scare people off, but let's be realistic. Sometimes that's the case.
Right. And there is no, I'll learn it. I'll spend the hour to learn it, and then when we're all together, I'll just explain it to you in 5 minutes. No, that doesn't work either.
That's usually
such wishful thinking.
Yeah, like some people are much better at being having a very flexible state of mind where they can pick things up quickly, or change directions quickly. But that's not most people. So there's a certain amount of time required and repetition of hearing the same set of rules 3 or 4 times before it sticks.
Yeah.
And if you're an auditory learner, listening to your buddy explain it might work, but if you're visual or tactile, you need to touch it and see it and play it. So,
right.
So it comes down to learning style too. So just learning the game sometimes can teach a lot of patience.
Yeah, I think that'd actually be interesting, because I'm cultivating patience. We're gonna touch on something else, but I didn't even grasp the idea of what it takes to learn the game. Are there any games that are developed that you're going to say this is the easy way to play? And then as you get to learn, and you're nodding, you're smiling over there. So this is the first time you play, you could play the short version. Then you could play the longer version. Then you can add in these other rules or something like that.
Absolutely.
And so I know you're dying to say Magic. So I'm going to let you do that if that's what you need to do.
I mean, there is, although depends on who the teacher is, because everyone explains Magic differently.
Certainly.
Some people want to info dump on them, because the rule book, like the basic rule book for Magic, is like 5-10 pages.
Okay.
The comprehensive rule book is 2,000.
Wow.
So anywhere in between on how much you want, and people don't retain information that way.
No.
So you have to break it up into little bits. But I would say board games are actually very good at that. They quite often have quick start rules.
Right.
Either printed in the material that comes with it, or online. There's some variant that makes it like, well, I don't like that one particular aspect of the game, or my aunt doesn't have a very long attention span, or whatever it is. Here's the quick start version. We go to a lot of conferences, 2 or 3 a year, for the shop. And one of the things that we do almost always at those conferences is play the new games.
Right. Sure.
They want to introduce it to us. They want to get us excited about it. Hopefully we buy it from them, etc. So they have to teach us quickly
Yeah.
how to play the game. We, in turn, need to, if we're going to try to mobilize our customer base, excite them and teach them quickly before they lose interest. So yeah, there's always a good short version of the game.
So yeah, and I wanted to cover that because when we talk about sometimes it takes an hour to learn the game. Everybody who's ever done game night with their family knows somebody goes, "Oh, this is a great game." And you're right. Everyone's arguing, no, that's not the way we play. We play that by this other rule. What rule is that? I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
And there's all that. And you're right. The evening is over before the game actually starts.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I like the fact that there's a lot of games where there's the shorter version as well as the longer version. Now, when we come into cultivating patience, the thing that I thought of immediately was when I'm playing a game and there's 4 to 6 people or more, and you're sitting there, and then I make a move and my strategy is like, I cannot wait till my next turn. And I have to sit there and I can't give it away that I've got something special.
Right.
And I've got to be patient and watch everyone else play until I get there. And I think that is dynamic. And I've seen that. You can see people's faces and you're like, you're waiting for something, aren't you? I could see it. No, not at all. I'm not even paying attention. Right. Yeah. So that's another quick lesson in patience.
Sure.
Is just that, as well as like you're saying with the instructions, the patience is not just learning, but also sitting there and waiting for someone to catch on.
Right. Yeah. And even a step further, you're waiting for your next turn to do the thing that you want to do, whatever cool thing it is. Either through happenstance or because someone else at the table is watching you and understands how you play, or maybe what your character wants to do.
Yeah.
They are intentionally going to employ a screw your neighbor tactic, which is something very common in games.
Certainly.
Yeah. And try to disrupt you. And so then you have to deal with disappointment along with patience.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're sitting there waiting and then realizing it didn't matter. It just doesn't. It's not going my way. Okay, awesome. All right, so this is important. So far, all these things, the building connections, perfect for your career later on. This is a great way to do this, to find things that people have in common, amplifies creativity. Every single job you could possibly have, any career you would have, you need some level of creativity.
Right.
And then this cultivate patience. Wow, I cannot imagine. I can't think of a career that wouldn't benefit from a certain amount of patience. So now we get into the O, which is optimize decisions. Okay. And I'm going to jump into here that this idea is that it definitely still jumps in with this patience thing, but it's strategic foresight. Okay. I teach some kids on Sunday. I teach them public speaking and debate skills. And there's this one kid, young kid, I'm guessing he's 10, 12 years old, something like that. And he won the state of Illinois chess championship. And so I talked to him, like, how many moves ahead do you think? And he goes, on an average, depending on the player I'm playing against, but he goes, if I'm really out to win a championship, it's 30 moves ahead.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, wow, I've played chess. I can't think of the second move. Okay. I could barely think of the first move. Right. So this idea of optimizing decision-making, if you can become so much better at making decisions like that in a game, making decisions in your life are so much easier, right?
I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whether you're playing board games, card games, whatever it is.
Sure.
You might have sequencing matters. I brought this up earlier.
Okay.
And I think that goes along with optimizing. Like, you can do a number of things, but doing them in the right order is going to optimize or maximize your outcome. So in many games, you are building an army of some sort. You're amassing creatures, dudes, something, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you have the ability to both do that in one turn and destroy everything on the field in one turn.
Right.
So this is a very basic example.
Sure.
Let's say I can do both.
Yeah.
Well, it would not behoove me to make 1,000 creatures and then destroy them all right after.
Right.
So sequencing matters. So I would want to destroy everything first,
and then
and then and nobody else has anything, and now I make my 1,000 creatures.
Right.
So like, that's very basic example, but like, it gets to the nth degree, because like where in chess you're playing against an opponent and you have a certain number of openings, and so there are only a certain number of responses to that those number of openings, so it's kind of finite.
Right.
And so thinking 30 moves ahead is actually possible for some people.
Right.
In a game like Magic, or maybe even a board game, the number of interactions is greatly increased, and so it grows exponentially by factors of 100 or 1,000.
Okay.
So while thinking ahead is needed, it is mostly impossible to think, let's say, 30 moves ahead.
Sure.
Because the expected outcomes on turn 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 are marginally different to medium-sized different to vastly different by the time you get to 5 or 6 turns down the road. So there's only so much thing you can do ahead.
Okay. So those decision-making skills for some games like this have got to sometimes be labeled as, what's my best case scenario? If they do this, this is what I should do. What's my worst case scenario? If they do this, then I should maybe do this. And then give yourself some options like that, which is, I love this because it really does tie to life outside of the board game. And, you know, we talk about some of the things that you do in board games where you're trying to crush your opponent, whereas it's not, hopefully you're not doing that in real life.
Right.
But that's the fun part of playing the board game. There's going to be a winner ultimately.
Right.
Okay. Whereas in business, what you're doing is you're just trying to grow and evolve and get better. Certainly you can leapfrog past competition or change the way you compete, things like that. But the decision-making skills are so important. Basically, we didn't even talk about the idea of, in chess, as well as plenty of other games like this, sometimes you have to make the decision to sacrifice pieces, in order for the greater good, which on a board game seems pretty easy, but in business, sometimes you have to demote somebody. You've got to fire them. You've got to get rid of them. You've got to change the rules of the game. You've got to step backwards. You've got to not promote your new product in order to regroup to come back stronger later.
100%. You have to roll with the punches, and you don't know, outside influences are going to change your plan. You have to be able to be flexible and quick enough to roll with it.
Right. And I think that's the decision making is one of those tough things for people, that it's heartbreaking. They get too much emotion tied to it, and they stop making logical decisions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So have you seen anything, and you don't have to name names, anything in a board game, even maybe something yourself, that you see somebody was just all emotion, not logic, and that's what hurt them?
Yes, absolutely. It could be anything. Like in many board games, there are, your avatar is represented by, a dinosaur. Let's say you really love dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But you also have, I don't know, plant people or something. Right? It might be the right move to let your dinosaur die, and let your plant people win the day.
Yeah.
But because you're so emotionally tied to that dinosaur,
that's funny.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not going to let my little guy die. So
that's such a perfect example. Yes,
you make poor moves. Another thing that happens a lot is that, let's say you play the same group of people multiple times throughout the evening.
Right.
If you're tired of that guy over there winning all the time, you will start to probably feel some kind of negative about it. And you might decide to take it upon yourself to only mess with that guy, even though it means you're never going to win.
Yes.
You're never going to let that guy win again.
Right.
Yeah. And so
you're going to at least do a little bit better than him, let's say, or something like that. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, maybe that's not a perfect lesson to learn. For business, but it's human nature. And I think one of those things is identify that you can't let emotion rule. You've got to come back and say, this is, if I'm working someplace, I'm getting paid to do my best job. I'm not getting paid to pick on another employee.
Right.
All right. So it's important. I think you can learn those kind of skills in playing a board game a lot easier, because the worst that happens is I lost that game.
Right.
Okay. Versus I lost my job.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's pretty cool. The last letter here, unless you had something more on decision making.
I was only going to say that.
Go ahead.
More on emotion. There's something that gets bandied about in the gaming community all the time, and that's threat assessment, or properly assessing the board state.
Okay.
And it's very easy to let emotion cloud that decision.
Right.
He might be the scariest guy, but for some reason, because I had an argument with that guy over there last week, he's the guy I'm going to mess with.
Right.
And then it's to your own detriment, because you don't position yourself very well to win or achieve your objectives or whatever it was.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just think it really is, in every game, is, while we're talking and my mind is going through the games that I play, without a doubt, other kinds of games like that. Yeah. You're always like, I always say I never have a best friend. I always have an arch rival. Okay. And so I'm going to see what it takes for me to beat that person.
Yeah.
If there's 6 of us playing, I don't have to be first. I just want to be 5th. Okay. Just so someone else is 6th. And so that works in games, and get that out in the games, that emotional play like that. But in business, you've learned to deal with that. Now it's
properly run business.
Yes.
People still do it, and or businesses still do it.
Oh my God.
Get in Twitter fights and other ridiculous things.
Exactly. Which you sit there going, that doesn't, that's not in the best interest of your company. So learn that, get those frustrations, those emotions out on the board game. Right. But I was thinking about even the games like checkers, even games as simple as that, Kings in the Corner, a card game, anything like that. You hate going, I have to make this move. I'm going to lose something. I'm going to get hurt here.
Right.
Before I can win. And hopefully I'm making the right decision, because maybe I'm being patient, because if I lose this, then when it's my turn, I get to play the big move. And then that's where somebody else, no, I know what you were trying to do.
Yeah.
We're not letting you.
Either you misplayed and did something silly, or you were laying a trap with sacrificial bait.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You sitting across from that person have to figure out which one is it.
Right. Yeah. I love this. It's that in-depth thinking, right? Yeah. So tremendous. What is before we get into the last one, is nurture confidence. What is a game that you would suggest when the person's like, I just want to have fun, and I don't want to overthink it. Okay. I just want to get mellow, have fun. It'll be a surprise, that type of thing.
Yeah.
What kind of games you got there?
So there are a whole host of what most people call small box games. They're around yay big.
Okay.
And cost $15 to $20.
Okay.
And because you can only fit so much in a small box, they're usually quick games.
Okay.
And they usually have a very simple rule set of, you just have to do 2 or 3 things.
Gotcha.
And one of my favorite companies that puts those out is Yellow.
Okay.
It's a French company. It's IELLO.
Okay.
They make a lot of those small box games, and they're all really good.
Okay.
And they're very quick.
And they're like, when you say very quick, how
15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Maybe
Good,
less.
good.
Maybe less.
Okay. All right. So they're just, so it's not the end of my world if I lose that game.
Or Flux. There's a whole family of Flux card games that have slightly different rule sets or different IPs attached to them.
Okay.
But it's basically, it's a card game, but you do what the card says.
Yeah.
You have cards in your hand in the deck, you pick it up, and whatever it says on the card, that's what you do.
Okay.
And so the rules constantly change in that one. So it's very difficult to develop like a long-term strategy.
I like
because
all right.
it's everything is random and chaotic. Like,
yeah.
You don't know what you're going to draw next. You don't know what your opponent's going to do. But it's
interesting.
Like we go left to right. Now we go back right to left. Now you skip every third person. Now you can only talk on days and into, whatever.
Yeah.
Like
that sounds like a
rules
perfect.
Are always
sounds like a great drinking game too.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. So let's jump into this last letter of bacon. So we did build connections, amplify creativity, cultivate patience, optimize decision making, and then finally, N is nurture confidence. All right. That playing board games is without a doubt, it boosts your confidence.
Mm-hmm.
You might, the first time you're going to walk in, like I said, I'm going to come to your place and go, I don't know how to play this game, man. These people, I'm going to sit at a table, I'm going to lose. I don't feel confident. But once you start energizing, once you start making a couple of moves and somebody goes, wow, great move. I never thought of that. Wow, you really did something incredible. It's going to start increasing your confidence, which helps you master that game and encourages you to go to the next game. Right.
I would definitely say so. So some people, especially when we're younger, probably derive a lot of our confidence from compliments or winning.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
As you grow older, you mostly probably realize that's kind of empty.
Right.
Growing, getting better at something
you're speaking my language. Yes.
Probably the best.
Yes.
For self-confidence. And so I think board games do a lot of that. You don't have to win the game. You got to sit around and play with your buddies, maybe strangers, whatever. Be entertained for 30 to 60 minutes, sometimes 2 hours.
Yeah.
And you got to, as long as you're trying at least somewhat, you're going to accomplish some number of objectives.
Okay.
Again, you may not win, but you did a thing. And that thing might have been cool. Like you did something that your buddy didn't do. You did something that no one's ever done before because the unique set of circumstances and your line of thinking. And
that's a really good way to look at these board games that again, I'm so glad you came here because I didn't think of it like that. I just viewed those games as you play, somebody's going to win.
Yeah.
All right. But I like this idea of that you learn and you grow and you evolve from them.
Yeah.
Perfect doing that. And so if I was going to send someone to your place and say, hey, they're interested in these types of games, more advanced games as opposed to, the games you got at Toys R Us.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Where's a great entry level? And then where can they grow from?
So it probably kind of corresponds to two main things. One is price point of the game.
Okay.
Generally speak, or footprint of the game. Like the bigger the box or the more expensive the game is, generally speaking, the more complex it is.
Okay. That's a good rule of thumb.
More pieces, more stuff. The rule book's thicker.
Yeah.
The other is the time. So it's not going to be a 15-minute game. It's not going to be a 30-minute game, most likely. You can graduate up, like you referenced earlier, 24 hours. Now that's a little extreme, but
right.
But a good 8-hour session for like Gloomhaven or something like that is not unheard of.
That's a cool sounding name.
Yeah.
Okay. But all right. So there's enough of a variety for everybody.
For sure. I would want to assess what kind of games they played and what kind of games they like. Like, I don't want to throw them in a resource management game if they hate those.
Okay. Wow. All right. And so again, I'm going to lean back on this where we started the show about what makes your place, Brass City Games, special is the fact that I can come in there with little to no knowledge about games and say, this is where I'm at. And you're going to ask me a series of questions.
Yeah.
What are you into? What do you like? What have you played, etc. And hopefully point me in the right direction to the right game.
Right.
Okay.
And again, like I said earlier, we can't know every game. We'll do our best. We know a lot of the games.
Sure.
And if we can't answer your question adequately, we'll point you in the direction of an appropriate resource. Like I said, YouTube has a lot of really great learn to plays or playthroughs of games, which can help teach people how to play.
All right. So believe it or not, Shane, we're like running out of time. This hour went very, very, very quickly. So what I'd like you to do is one more time, just tell the people out here, tell us about the event again coming up this weekend, but tell us where we can find you. And again, what makes you special.
Sure. Sure. So we're Brass City Games. We're in Lake Villa, Illinois.
That's Lake Villa.
Lovely Lake Villa. 300s North Milwaukee, Suite K. This Friday, we're going to be doing a 24-hour live stream of playing Magic with my buddy Joe and a number of other members of the community. We're going to have raffles, door prizes. It's going to be a fundraiser as well for mental health and suicide awareness.
Nice.
So that's posted up on our socials. We're on basically every social. It's all the same. It's Brass City Games of some kind.
Okay. And then you're going to have your official ribbon cutting on Saturday as well, correct?
Yep.
All right. So there'll be food and fun for all, right?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So with that, again, Shane, thank you so very much for coming here. I enjoyed this conversation. This is, you've definitely intrigued me more. I'm going to come and hang out at your shop. I'm going to be in a Brass City Games groupie, maybe. All right. But you'll definitely see me there this coming weekend because that sounds like a very fun event. And yeah, and so I heard there's going to be some fireworks in Grays Lake, so you might be able to see them. I don't know if it's Friday night or Saturday night they're doing that.
Okay,
but
yeah,
something there. There's some more events coming up, but there's no greater event than the one that's going on at Brass City Games. All right. So thank you all so very much for tuning in. You've been listening to Bacon Bits with Master Happiness. I'm your host, Marty Jalove. Come at you every Monday night at 7:00 right here on 98.3 FM The Life. If you've missed any part of this episode, shame on you. But you can follow us on Bacon Bits with Master Happiness anywhere you listen to podcasts. This show will be on the podcast a little bit later this week. So tune in next week for our next show. We're going to be continuing our conversation about taking your side hustle to success. In the meantime, dust off some of those old games, stop over at Brass City Games and pick up a new one. All right. Talk to you guys soon. Thank you again, Shane.
Thanks, Marty.
WRLR 98.3 FM LP, Round Lake Beach, Illinois.